Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in the world and where you're joining us from. I can see the attendee list is growing. We're up to 60, 70 now, and it's going to continue to grow over the next minute or two as people filter in and finish their various meetings or dog walk or whatever it is you might have been doing before joining us. But hello, my name is Andrew Hubbard from Poppulo. Delighted to be hosting this trends webinar today. We'll do a proper introduction of the speakers you can see on screen in just a moment. But while we're pouring in, just take to the chat for me. Let me know where you're dialing in from, joining us on Zoom from today. Always good to see the kind of global reach of these events. You should see in the chat there, you all worked it out already. So let's have a look. Bristol, Abu Dhabi, New York City, San Francisco, Minneapolis, Rugby, St. Louis, Missouri, Dubai, Lagos, Nigeria, Helsinki, London, never heard of it, South Carolina, Chicago, Miami, Luxembourg, Saudi Arabia again, Washington, D.C., Florida, Texas, Cincinnati, Krakow in Poland, Germany, San Diego, Dublin. This is incredible. What a global audience we've got. More than 200 in the chat now as well. So look, wherever you're joining us from, thank you so much. Thank you for your company. It's going to be a really worthwhile hour. Let me introduce what we're going to be talking about today. Today's webinar is Top Employee Communication Trends and Strategies for 2025. As we enter the new year, well, we're well into the new year now, employee comms professionals face a landscape defined by constant change. You've heard that before, right? But also pervasive uncertainty inside and outside the workplace. And I think in this environment, the future of internal comms, especially in the era of AI, has become a highly debated topic. And today, what we've worked on here is to bring together a panel of communications leaders from lots of different industries, years and years of experience, to share their insights and, crucially for you guys tuning in, practical tips for navigating the future of internal communications in 2025 and beyond. And as I say, we'll get round to introductions in just a moment. But first, a few words about our hosts, Poppulo, and also some important housekeeping. Poppulo, who are we? Poppulo helps the world's biggest global organizations deliver transformative comms experiences that reach, engage, and inspire employees. And that amounts to 50 million employees around the world. We reach more than anyone else. 4,500 businesses globally as well we work with. And with Poppulo, communicators can publish and measure targeted, personalized content and across their channels, email, digital signage, mobile, Teams, SharePoint, and more. And we do that with enterprise-grade performance, scale, and security. Let's talk about housekeeping. We're on Zoom. As you know, you've worked out how to use the chat, but you'll also see that there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or top of your screen or on your cell or however you're tuning in today. Do use that. Use the Q&A box to ask questions as we progress through the conversation. We will address any burning questions as we go, but there's also going to be a good chunk at the end for me to bring your questions to this panel of experts. We'll also be recording the webinar and sending out a recording to everyone afterwards so you can share it with friends, colleagues, your mum's friend Janice, whoever you like. Let me give you a couple of useful links as well before we get into the introductions. Next month, we're hosting a webinar, February webinar on your career, right? How to advance in your IC career. And we've got a really good panel for that. We've got Josh Matheson, who I've seen host a number of our events before. He's Chief Encouragement Officer at Change Oasis. And Andrew Harvey, he's the CEO at VMA Group and an expert in the IC recruitment landscape. They're going to discuss advancing your career in internal communications and how to deliver great communications at the same time. So there's a link to register for the next webinar in the chat now. So feel free to check that one out. And the other thing I wanted to just flag, because I read it myself yesterday, we've just put out a blog. And I know that you guys are data fiends like me, so you'll like this. But we did a blog on our website last week looking at all of those 50 million employees that we reach and those 4,500 customers that we have across the world. And we looked at like a goldmine of data. So what are the top IC trends from 2024 from everything our customers were doing last year? What were the top communicated topics? What content was resonating with employees? And really crucially, what are the new benchmarks in terms of open rates and click rates and stuff? So all of that stuff, we'll drop a link in to the blog there in the chat now as well. Let's talk about our speakers then. That's the housekeeping done. So as I say, my name is Andrew Hubbard. I'm the Senior Director of Communications here at Poppulo. My role is to lead on our own internal communications and engagement efforts, as well as lots of exciting external stuff too. And I'm not going to steal the thunder of any of our wonderful speakers here. So maybe what we'll do is we'll take this slide down and we'll move our way around the screen and get them to introduce themselves. Ashley, let's start with you.
Thanks, Andrew. So hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm Ashley Dennison. I am the founder of commsconsultants.com. I'm also a longtime internal communicator. I've worked internal communications from all possible vantage points. So I've done it in-house, I've done it on the agency side, and I've done it many years now as a consultant, working directly with brands. So this is my passion. This is what I care most about. I'm excited to dive in with everybody today.
Thank you for joining us, Ashley. Asha, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Asha Issac. I'm the Head of Internal Communications and Culture Change at Hamlets Council. I've got a range of experience in local government. So first started off in a housing association, worked in various councils all across London. And yeah, done a lot of external communications and internal comms. My love is for internal comms, so that's where I'm at now. And yeah, about eight and a half years now at Tower Hamlets Council. So yeah, I've been on a real journey over that period of time. And yeah, really looking forward to this and hearing some of your questions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Asha. Thanks so much for joining us. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Gary Oxenham.
Well, you just took my thunder away by sharing my name there, Andrew. But yes, I'm Gary. It's lovely to be on this chat with everybody here and looking forward to this. I am the Deputy Head of Internal Communications for KPMG in the UK. Mixture of, IC has been my main career with a mixture of working agency side for a number of years, as well as in the transport industry and latterly in professional services.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gary. Thanks, everyone. What we're going to do then over the next sort of 40 minutes, and then leaving a good chunk at the end for questions, is talk about 4 topics. One is change at times of uncertainty. Second one is strategies that communicators can use to prove the value of IC and hopefully drive investment in communications. Of course, we're going to talk about AI. Wouldn't be a webinar, a trends webinar without it. And we're also going to talk about how communicators can have the biggest impact in 2025. So remember, guys, before we get started, you can ask your questions as we go along in the Q&A box. But without further ado, let's get into it. First topic, as I say, is about change and uncertainty. There's no doubt that these things are at an all-time high. And I think going into 2025, I'd love to hear from you guys on what are your priorities for navigating change and uncertainty in the workplace. And actually, let's start with you again. Let's go to the US first.
Oh boy. As the US-based communicator on the webinar, I feel it's a little bit of my responsibility to, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but a little bit of my responsibility to speak to the current climate in the US. Without getting political or getting into specifics, we have to acknowledge that millions of Americans are struggling not just with change and uncertainty, but with significant fear and anxiety right now. They're burdened by these emotions on a daily basis. And I think as internal communicators, we have to approach our comms cognizant of that. And I just want to share a few strategies I've used over the years during times of change, challenge, and crisis, including significant work with healthcare corporations during the pandemic to engage employees. So number one, it starts with empathy, which is always a good practice in my mind, leading all of our communications with some form of acknowledgement of what employees may be thinking, feeling, experiencing. And I think even to take a step back before empathy, it starts with listening, right? If we're only speaking to employees, sharing with employees, telling employees what we want or, what our leaders want from them, without taking the time to gauge where they're at, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, we really can't be empathetic, because empathy is all about mirroring, right? What others are feeling, what others need in the moment. So I'd say if you don't already have strong listening channels in place, both quantitative and qualitative, get those in place now, double down on them. Do even more to listen and to dig in. Quick polls, to check in. How are you doing today? How are you feeling? Focus groups, listening sessions, interviews. Only when you have a sense of how your employee audience is doing and where they're at can you effectively convey empathy in your communications and tell them, we hear you, we see you, we feel what you feel, we acknowledge it, and we understand that this may be distracting you, this may be making it difficult to focus, to stay on task. These are very, very real challenges at the moment in the US, and this may continue for an extended period of time to come. So that's number one. A couple of other things I'll mention without going too much in the weeds, and this is, I'm sure, a refresher course for many of you, is just frequency and immediacy of communication. So in a rapidly changing environment where so much is in flux, there's new developments, new policy changes, new things happening all the time. Really important to be on the ball, as we would with any crisis situation, any emergent issue. We need to communicate even more, even if it's short form, quick updates. We need to be right there front and center, connecting with employees in real time. And then the last thing I'll say is just transparency and fallibility. When it comes to leader communications, we have to really go further to humanize our executives and our leaders. And one of the best ways to do that is conveying fallibility, conveying the fact that we don't have all the answers. We're not perfect. We don't know it all. We're trying to figure this out in real time, and we want your help to do it. We want to bring you along on this journey. So, that's a few ideas from me, but we are all figuring this out in real time. We are all trying to make the best of the situation. So just wanted to briefly speak to the US experience. Thanks, Andrew.
Well, of course, thank you. I think it's important to touch on those things. And you talked about leadership communications there. Asha, let me throw that over to you. I know that's something that certainly in Tower Hamlets that's been very important in recent years.
Yeah, for sure. I think for us, leadership communications has been really key. It's really supported us through change. So there's two elements. It's having the visibility of your leaders, and ensuring your leaders really understand communications as well, because it can seem like it's just an output for an internal comms team, but actually having them on board is really important. So how we've done that is through, I would say, through data, which has been the success of proving the value of internal comms. So as many of you will have, we have different ways of engaging with our audience, whether it's directly through newsletters, we have weekly newsletters, directorate newsletters, to two-way engagement via like events, conferences, kind of Teams live events with our senior leaders. And what we've done is really change our approach using the data, and that's been really key. So whether it's increasing attendance at events or an action that's needed, we've really utilised that data to support that. So as all of you may do, we start with our all-staff messaging, and then we really drill down into the data. So we look at engagement statistics as well as the data of, let's say, someone who has the amount of staff that have signed up to an event. And we share that information with our senior leaders. What that offers is a bit of gamification. So, that's kind of seeing where our services directorates are at. We use that to support direct communication. So ensuring our senior leaders are kind of sharing that message alongside our corporate messaging. And that kind of two-pronged approach has really worked for us. It also ensures that that senior leader is very visible, leading from the top, when you look at culture, your leaders are very, very important. Comms can only take you along the journey, but your leaders are very, very key to that. And it's something that's really worked well for us, and a process that we use for all kind of high level comms. An example is we have our Chief Exec roadshows. So previously it was a hard push to get people to sign up to them. And through kind of using this approach, we were kind of fully booked within 2 weeks recently, and that's never happened before. So it's kind of a journey you can go on where you start to see, could call it compliance, but you start seeing staff actually making the effort themselves, signing up because it's part of the culture then. So for me, really, it's building on that for us, and the kind of support with our leaders through it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Asha, go ahead.
No, that's it. Thank you.
I was just agreeing. I was nodding and agreeing on mute, then I came off mute too keenly. I think you're right. I think something certainly something I've experienced in my career today is, you go in with a plan, you've got everything nailed down, and then the metrics come at the end. But what you talked about there, I think, is really important, which is like, measure as you go, and alter, and change track when you need to get the desired results. I think it's a really good point. We had a quick question coming in from Francesca there. We'll just cover it off, Gary, before we go to Gary. Did you have any guidance on two-way comms with a global audience, multi-language and culture that have been successful for you?
So that's so we're obviously mainly Tower Hamlets based, so we mainly reach our audience that's within the borough. What I would say is, you do have different types of workers, and it's just ensuring you have different approaches. So, for example, we've ensured they're part of the organisation. It's very, they can feel quite distant and detached. Working in different areas, we have one main location and then many, multiple small locations, and that connection back into your main area is very hard and very tricky. I would say it's still something we are trying to crack at Tower Hamlets, but I think it's your methods. So what we try to do, for example, with two-way engagements or our events, we try to host them at a variety of areas. I wonder whether it's global, whether it's something that you have many different sessions rather than just the one. I think offering options is the key. Not everyone's working routine is the same. So ensuring you have different various ways of engaging with your audience is really important. And also the key thing is not everyone digests information and engages in the same way. So that's why we've really broadened out what we offer. And that's been part of also the journey, I would say, that we've been on in the council.
That's a really good point. And Francesca, if you're a Poppulo customer, speak with your customer success manager about auto translate, which has been turned on with the emails now. I've been testing it myself, and it's a game changer for us. But I think the two-way piece is a really important one. We'll come back to some more questions in a moment. Gary, wrap us up on this first topic around managing change in uncertain times.
Yeah, I think some really good points from you both, Ashley and Asha, and especially on that data piece, as well as the humanizing of leadership. And we're all people, right? And we should speak to people like people. And one of those key things is, with so much change and uncertainty, where you can, transparency and clarity is really, really key in this, both from leadership, but also us striving for that. We're the people working with leaders, with the places we work with, and it's our job to ask the why. Okay, this is happening, but why are we doing it? And those various reasons. And again, with regular updates, we're keeping pace with the change, with that equal focus on the what and the why of the decisions being made. But I also think, as well as communicators, as a business, it's also good to remember that we're making these decisions, but people may not like the actions being taken or decisions being made, and we should always be prepared for that. But I do think that going back to transparency and clarity, giving that to people, the reasons why, does go a long way.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's the whole start with why thing, right? People might not like it, but if they at least understand it, I think you're halfway there, aren't you? That's great. Okay, guys, listen, I think we want to keep moving because there's 3 other topics we want to touch on. The next one is about strategies that our viewers can use to help make the case for communications, right? How can we prove the value of IC so that we can get more investment in comms, whether that's resource or technology, whatever it might be. Asha, I might start with you on this one.
Yeah, of course. I think it would be good to touch on the point of what we just had a question on around, reaching all staff. So we have around 10,000 staff in total, various locations with around 3,000 that are public facing. So providing those key services to our residents. They're the face of the company. So ensuring they are updated and engaged is really, really key. So last year we carried out a research project because you can make assumptions on how best to communicate, but actually you need to go out and speak to them. So we wanted to find out, how do they feel, what do they have access to, and what we found from the research was that every area, each area engaged in a different way. So it could be possible that they had poor manager engagement, their working environment wasn't great, or they didn't have access to communications. So what we have done is to ensure that they are involved and engaged in every event, as I mentioned. That was a key part of last year for us. We ensured they were at our staff conference. It was great for, office-based staff to see our frontline workers there, to feel like you're all part of one organisation. And then what we are doing currently is going out to our staff and actually speaking to them about their feedback and also the manager's role. So as I mentioned about my role, I cover internal communications, but I also cover an element of culture change. That's been part of the success of internal comms at the council, that we're not just churning out the newsletters. It's like, how can we have impact on campaigns, engagement with staff? So part of our kind of looking forward, as in how we would kind of areas of focus and to achieve this, was to look at firstly 3 areas, which is the first one was comms and engagement, so ensuring they are part of the organisation. 2 areas of culture, which is the what we will offer you. So we recently gave them access to our intranet, worked with our digital and IT team. And then it's like, we give you the access, we give you the systems. What do we need you to do? So it's kind of the carrot and stick. So, we give you the platforms, but we need you to log in. We need you to keep up to date. Try to do some gems in there, like local discounts at restaurants, which they loved.
Yeah, no doubt.
Health and safety, key information, health and well-being. Really kind of put those kind of key corporate messages and those kind of points of what you can access. And there's also the cultural role of the senior leader, which goes back to kind of the point I just previously covered. So you really need your leaders being part of that. And there is some work to do there. So what are those touch points? They don't have your normal 9 to 5 role. They do need those opportunities where they can speak to their manager, they can touch base with them. So this is an ongoing project. We are probably a quarter of the way. It's a long journey to go on, but it's something I really want to achieve. I know it's something that in the UK, a lot of councils face and a lot of organisations with front-facing staff. But I'm hoping we will go through that journey and be able to achieve that. And having that check-in point. So although we gave them, for example, we gave them access to the Bridge, which is our intranet site, we wanted to get their feedback on it. So it's just really not making assumptions on what you think they want and need. It's taking them along with you on that journey. So surveys, checking in, that's been really key, and building those relationships. And with so many staff, having that kind of real close-knit relationship with each individual area, I think is the key to success. So yeah, that's something I feel is really key for us.
Yes. That's good. I know it's funny you said about the carrot and stick thing. I did a project a couple of years ago in another organisation, and we were working to get the front line onto the intranet. And the carrot stick thing became quite an interesting discussion at C-suite level, because they were like, once we turn this thing on, they'll use it, right? No. I would love the carrot to be like, corporate news. It's not. That's the stick, right? We beat them with that when we get them in the door. Actually, it's what's in the cafeteria this week, right? You know, as you say, discounts at local stores, whatever it's going to be. Yeah, that's interesting. Andy, I see you just put a comment there in the chat. Pop it in the Q&A for us, just so we don't miss it, and we'll pick that up at the end. Gary, what about you? How are we making the case for more investment in IC?
Well, I think going back to Asha's point in terms of, you know, we need that leadership buy-in, that leadership input, that leader role, right? So communications, we can do some really great things with communications, right? And it's a great mechanism of engagement. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't replace leadership. We need that part as well. And actually just, you know, that value, there's a really valuable partnership here between communications and your leadership team, right? You know, and you know, thanks leader for your strategy for growth for the next 3 years, 5 years, or whatever that. We'll take that and we'll create a very good narrative and vision that really brings the strategy to life with storytelling at the heart of it, because we know storytelling is an art and it's the best way to get and land these messages. And also the other thing about that relationship is, you know, communications and internal communications isn't just about creating great content these days. You know, we're brought into some really key decisions on process, the things happening in the business, the very things that we're doing to engage our people. You know, we also often act as advisors to those leaders. You know, our connections with colleagues are extremely valuable to them, you know, and we provide that effective challenge in our conversations, potentially highlighting things, you know, that are going into policies, or highlighting things that maybe our leaders haven't thought about because we've got those eyes and ears on the ground. And I think that is a really valuable part of that relationship, which in turn drives that value of internal communications and investment.
Yeah, I think it's bomb. Yeah, Ashley, bring us home on this one.
Well, I'm going to give a little bit of tough love here when I say that, you know, just as we communicators have so much value to bring as trusted advisors, and, you know, we can be in the ear of the C-suite and make our case, I think we comms professionals also need to do a better job ourselves of speaking and thinking the language of the C-suite and understanding and becoming much more familiar with the metrics and the numbers that they are looking at on a daily basis and that they really care about. I don't see, broadly, having worked with many communicators worldwide, I don't see a lot of understanding and familiarity. I certainly don't see a lot of usage of the metrics that the C-suite are, you know, intensely interested in, things like revenue, profitability, retention, growth, shareholder value, cost savings metrics, efficiencies. So often we're siloed in the comms universe, fixated and obsessed with the metrics and the engagement figures and you know, the comms wins that we care about and that maybe tie to our performance and our achievement, but we're not thinking like the CEO, and we're certainly not trying to speak their language. And I would just challenge everyone listening to make a study of the C-suite as an audience, the same way that you are so careful and so diligent about studying and assessing your audiences of employees so that you can reach them, you can engage them, you can meet them where they are. If you want something from the C-suite, like resources, budget, proper technology, proper tools, more headcount, contractors, whatever it is you need to make a study of them as an audience that you need to target, speak their language, communicate that you care about what they care about, and you can help them achieve what they want to achieve.
I think that's brilliant. I think just coming in there, business acumen is a really, really valuable tool, right? We're all negotiators here, right? We're all talking to leaders. We need this, so we're going to negotiate. We're going to get into a conversation and end up with a good compromise with that big business acumen and how it will help with the top or the bottom line to grow your company and stuff like that. This is the thing that's helping with you. So that's a really good point, Ashley.
Yeah, nailed it. I think, you know, we did a webinar sometime last year. We had some really great speakers on there, and it was about, you know, progressing your IC career. And one of the things we asked was, like, what's the skill people should be focusing on? And business acumen was top of the list. You know, go and have a business conversation with your C-suite. lead with respect, and that's where you get from the point of, tactical delivery to strategic partnership and, trusted advisor land, which is where we want to be. So yeah, spot on, Ashley. I said earlier, it wouldn't be a webinar about trends in internal communication if we didn't talk about something called AI. Never heard of it. Sounds important though. What would be good? Let's do a poll. I think the team can throw up a poll here for us. Before we get into the topic, we've got hundreds of people online. I want to know, how much are you using AI in your role in internal communications right now? Not at all, occasionally, frequently, every day. It's everything now. So we can't vote ourselves, but we can see your results as they come in. So just click one of those there and let's just see and get an idea of where we are in terms of our, I guess, maturity or at least acceptance of artificial intelligence. It's obviously been a big news week for AI. So if you weren't using it before, I bet everyone's had a little look at this DeepSeek, this DeepSeek thing. And then what we'll do once we see your results in just a second, we'll have a think about how our panelists are using it here. Let's have a look. Okay, so the split is this: 16% not using it at all, 40%, the majority, using it occasionally, frequently 27%, and then 18% are using it every day. I would say I'm probably in the frequently camp now. It took me a while to work out what I needed it for. I know what I don't want it for. I don't want it to replace the things I really enjoy about my job, storytelling, writing a story, creating a narrative. But, the things I don't enjoy so much, crunching the numbers, data analysis and all that jazz, that's where I certainly can get value out of it. But what about the team here? Gary, let's start with you.
Okay, so one of the things you just mentioned there, maturity, and that's a key piece around what AI is and Gen AI actually is at the moment, right? So I think it's really important for us, and I think the comments just gone in there actually about an evolving technology. That's exactly my point, right? AI right now is still in its infancy. It's very easy to get taken along with that ride, right? But actually, it's not mega new in the way that we're using it at the moment, and it isn't still in its infancy. And you can even see that on things like LinkedIn posts and things like that now. There's a lot of people that are now very tuned in to spotting whether or not a post is actually a real person, or is it a Gen AI platform doing this? And you can even spot type of words that they're using and stuff like that, which I think is brilliant. But that's another thing there in terms of that human element, right? That a communicator will bring to that, and a person will bring to that, regardless of whether in communications or not, right? And accuracy is also a key thing at the moment, isn't it? Your AI is only as good as the data that it's pulling from, and it might make a few mistakes. So, we have to check whether what it's producing is correct, where it's getting that information on, and it's only as good as the data it's given. But going back to what you were saying, Andrew, about the things that, you don't like doing, for all communicators, while Gen AI, in my fundamental view, it can't replace that storytelling, it can't replace that people at the heart of that communications or a well-crafted narrative, it can be used to enhance our ways of working, right? And by that, I'm really referring to the activities that take us away from delivering the great value-adding work that we're doing, right? So, I'm using some small examples, but note-taking is a big thing, right? You're in a meeting, use something like Copilot to take those meetings if you're allowed to, and take away those distilling points and stuff like that. Reports, you're writing an article on a report. We all have to do. We might even have been given a 30-page PDF or 30-page PowerPoint that we've been asked to write an article. We don't like those things, but we do get given them and we're rushing. So what can we use AI to do that? Can we take that report? Can we distill the key themes from that to give us a starting platform and, give us a working draft where we can put the magic in that piece? And I think where we're talking about these things in terms of the challenges that we're facing with change and stuff, that challenge is also resource, it's budget. We can use AI to help us with those and again, get back to that value-adding work.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in the chat actually along those lines, in terms of, particularly if you're in a small team, how can you find the productivity gains? Ashley, what do you think?
Well, I love that Gary brought up the infancy of this new technology, because to me, new things are scary. New things can be confusing to navigate, but also new developments like this present an amazing opportunity for us as internal communicators, because we're all in the process of figuring out not just how we're going to use AI in our daily work, but how our organizations are going to use AI. What kinds of AI policies are our organizations going to develop? Will they be ethical? Will they be responsible? And to me, the opportunity here, when we're very early on in trying to navigate this and figure this out, is to invite our employees into that process, to partner with us, to collaborate with us, to provide their input and ideas and suggestions early on in the journey, share how they're feeling about AI, their ideas for how we could use it practically to improve our business operations. What does ethical and responsible usage mean to them? And we all know when we invite employees into the early stages of any new initiative, any transformation, they tend to eagerly adopt it down the line and become partners and supporters of that initiative in a much more tangible way. So I would say think about that as you're developing your policies and practices around AI. Think about how you can involve the audiences internally that this will ultimately affect. And then one other thing I wanted to call out, just as you're thinking about these policies, is I've seen some really interesting usage lately of disclosure statements at the front of employee communications. So whether it's a video, it's a written communication, it's an infographic, some kind of message, running along the top of the screen, the top of the email that says either that AI was used to develop this communication or that no AI was used to develop this communication. I've seen that particularly with some videos that leaders are putting out to engage employees. And I think that's really strategic. I think that's really thoughtful to just consider, how can we leverage a disclosure statement about AI usage to further humanize, right? We talked about the humanization of leaders. How can we potentially disclose that no AI was used in a leader video and have that amplify, the human personal component, the authenticity of a leader communication? Something to think about. You can use this to your benefit. That's my 2 cents.
I like it. No, I think it's good. There's sort of humble brag there involved as well, isn't there? Like, hey, I did all this by myself. Mind you, they never put a disclaimer on there when, no script writer, no internal communicator was involved in the production of this town hall meeting.
Well, and Andrew, just to add to that, one more thought is, I'm sure many of us listening today are aware of this, but some employees prior to the rise of AI, some, especially frontline employees, people that feel rather disconnected from the corporate sphere, the ivory tower, have long felt a bit of a chip on their shoulder and a bit of, existing perception that everything that comes down from the CEO or from senior leadership is perfected and polished by some, communications lackey, which frankly it is. They're absolutely right about that. A lot of lackeys on this call, I myself am one of them. But that perception and that disconnect, right, between hearing directly from a leader in their voice in a real, true, authentic way and feeling that connection versus having something that's highly polished, highly scripted, has gone through an extensive approval process before it ever reaches that employee. Those perceptions have long been around, and AI could exacerbate that if we don't do this right.
Right, spot on. I just see a few more questions coming into the chat. Just remember, guys, Dee, I'm looking at your question on advice moving from Marcoms to IC. Just make sure you pop it in the Q&A section so we can tackle that in a few minutes' time. Asha, talk to us about AI.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, not something I have really looked into, personal life and work life. So I really feel that this is something that I want to know a lot more about. Agree with Gary and Ashley, really, like the power of storytelling and tone is really key. And within our organisation, like we have a preferred tone. Councils, local government has gone on a journey very much so 10, 15 years ago, very corporate, very, formal in their wording. And we've really gone on a journey to be more informal, but corporate, especially with internal comms. It feels like you can have a bit more fun, I guess, than external. So I think tone is really key, and something I would really be sad to lose in my team, if I'm honest, because I've got some great writers. So that's something our senior leaders are really really a fan of, and like the way we write. I would say in our organisation, lucky to have leaders that are very engaged. Our chief exec really likes to, we do produce a message, but likes to have his input, likes to have a look over, wants to know what it's going to cover. And I think one way, just to cover on Ashley's point, is having different elements. So I'm looking at introducing like a blog. So something where he can really put his personal message across. It's not about news happening in the borough, what's happening in the council. It's really something he can share from himself. So I think having options around storytelling tone is really important in an organisation. With AI, I think rules and guidance, especially in the sector that I work in, is going to be really key. I know we are looking at it and how it can be used. But I think for me, it's really around efficiencies. How can you save time? Small internal comms team, trailing through data from surveys. I mean, that's something that takes up a lot of my time. And I think it's something, Andrew, you and I had a conversation about before around, for example, a survey. I send an email out saying, please complete this survey, take them from that platform onto Microsoft Forms, then analyze that data. And actually, I didn't even know that I could host that in Poppulo and analyze all that data within there. And, for me, it's better for the user experience. And then also for me as the one that's managing it, it's a lot more easier. So efficiencies, I feel, is really key. Just what Gary said about note taking, that just to save time, allows you to focus on something else, is just really important.
No, I can agree more. And you've led me on to another poll. Actually, I need to ask everyone on the call if you'd like to talk to someone at Poppulo about how Poppulo can help you reach your workforce more efficiently, like the conversation Asha and I had in 2025. Then there's a poll up here now. Just say yeah, put me in touch, or no, I'm good, thank you so much. And if you say yes, we'll make sure one of the team get in touch with you. So, speakers, I'm going to ask that we keep the last question really succinct, and I'll tell you why. We've got loads of good questions coming in, and I think people get real value from that. So, really quickly on this one, the last question we're going to cover is really about how internal communications can have the biggest impact in 2025. Ashley, let's go to you first.
Okay, well, anyone who knows me knows I have a heart for the frontline employee, for employees who work on their feet, more specifically, people who work away from desks, away from computers, who don't have a lot of access to technology. They tend to be the hardest to reach and the easiest to lose. So that's my advice, is advocate for the hardest to reach employee. Bring them with you into your meetings and planning sessions in spirit. And a fun little tip I'll give might make you laugh. I've actually advised people to do this, and they've done it. Is fix a label to one of your chairs in your conference room, your planning room, with a photo of a real employee in your organization, a representative employee, and their name. Maybe, if you're a manufacturing organization, this is one of your plant employees who's working on the floor all day, and you have their photo and their name on a chair sitting with you in the conference room. It really helps to visualize and think about that employee who isn't your, typical corporate sphere, highly engaged, desk-based worker. It's your hardest to reach employee. Keep them top of mind this year, and make sure that everything you're putting together for your IC programs, your beautiful AI-generated IC programs, is considering them and thinking about what's best for them as well. That's my advice.
That's a great way to visualize, an audience member and keep them front of mind. I love that. Asha.
I think for me, it's be brave, try new things and build on your success. Really use that data. That's something I would say has really helped me in my career and where I am at the moment. So use your data, be brave, and try new things as much as you can.
Yeah, love that. Gary, take us into the Q&A. What's your parting message here?
Okay, so it's the age old, and I think we do deal with this a lot. We've all heard it before. We need to do more with less. Well, with budget and resource restraints, you can only do less with less, right? So this is the age old, right? This is the prioritization. prioritizing and focusing on fewer things, but really smashing those and doing those well. Go for the key things that you and your leadership believe that will move the dial with this year. Hopefully you'll both be in agreement. But again, we're negotiators, like I said. So it's about showing those folks that we can do these things really, really well. These things, let's push them back. Let's do them next year or do them later on in the year. So we've got these goals to go for those priorities.
Love it. That's fantastic. Thank you all so much for your inputs there. Lots of quotable bits, but I do like you can only do less with less. That's great. Let's tackle these questions. There's loads. We've got 14 in. Guys, if you've got any more, drop them in as we go. I'm going to take it from the top, and we'll try and be brief in our answers, just so we can get through as many as possible. Anna Walker's asked about managing cascade at lower management levels to the exec team. So focusing more on the hard to reach colleagues, what's the top tip here for ensuring that the same message is landing all the way through the organisation? Who wants to tackle that?
I think I can go really quickly on this. I think the key thing about cascade is that, you know, from the top, so your leaders in the business as a whole, for instance, you know, they're saying something, but the really important thing is as it goes in cascade is it's made real to the people within the other areas of a business. That's the key thing to focus on there. What is this part of the business-wide strategy, and how do we take that part and make it real for that person in that business? That's the key thing in my view that I would say focus on that element, and I think that can help you in terms of that challenge.
So anything to add on that, guys, or I'll move to the next one? Lots of nodding heads. That's a good sign, Gary. Great answer. Tundi's, I've got a question here. Asha, I might come to you on this because you touched on this in one of the answers here. What's your suggestion on reaching the hard to reach, those deskless employees? The question is specifically around, you know, what tools do you suggest for measuring internal comms and campaigns with that hard to reach audience?
Yeah, so I would say have a multiple variety. Don't rely on digital, because there are different working patterns. You know, they're not able to read through lengthy comms like we are able to as office-based staff. We have various things from notice boards back in the day, posters, leaflets. We then have AV screens, giving them access to the intranet, key news for them, and ensuring then they are part of everything, as I've said, like they are invited to attend every event, working with their managers. And that's really key. The managers are super important in this. So working with them, and as in checking in, we host events and we check how they felt. So we do short surveys with them to build on kind of that improvement journey that we go on. But it is a real journey and it takes time.
Yeah, no, it does. I think, Ashley, I'm going to come to you with the next question here, Ashley, because Jerry's asked, it's a long question, but I'm going to summarize. You know, one of the biggest challenges Jerry's seeing is, you know, companies, particularly Western companies, jumping on a trend, you know, well-being or DEI, but actually lacking the follow-through, the authenticity, the investment. An example he's given here is, you know, big push around well-being, but actually we're going to go for a cheaper insurance provider because, you know, it's better for the company, but it offers the employees less. So, you know, the question, I guess, is, you know, how are we able to get through to leaders that credibility is so severely damaged if we aren't being honest and truthful and authentic with things like this?
Okay, so hi, Jerry. Thanks for this question. I know you actually, so good to see you popping up in the chat today. Huge issue, could be its own webinar. We could all talk about this for an hour. And I also wouldn't call, I know you didn't mean it this way, but I wouldn't call our personal well-being, our human well-being or DEI trends. I would call them absolutely critical to our civilization as a whole. But what I would say is, remember what I said about communicators needing to think, act, and behave like the C-suite does. The reason why CEOs and C-suite leaders make these decisions is because there's a business case for them. The example that you gave, right? Finding a cheaper insurance provider, even though it doesn't align with some of the messaging, the feel-good messaging maybe that's been put out. The reason, the business case for that decision is because there's cost savings, there's efficiencies. It's going to, you know, increase the profitability. That's just the hard reality of the world that we live in. So if we want to change this dynamic, we have to figure out the through lines, the measurable through lines between something like keeping our promises to employees and employee retention figures. For example, we have to find metrics that the C-suite cares about, find a way to measure that through line and connection between that decision and maybe a 10% loss of employees within a certain organization or at a certain level over the last 12 months, show them the money that they're losing for the organization as a result of these changes. If you're trying to approach it from a moral standpoint, a standpoint of what you should do, what's right to do, I'm afraid, and maybe I'm again being a Debbie Downer here, but I'm afraid you're not going to get nearly as far as if you can give a measurable business case for why they need to think, act, and speak differently.
I think that's great. Great answer, Ashley. Certainly not a Debbie Downer. I think the question we've got from Deborah Morrison here is an interesting one. When it comes to change and uncertainty, what advice would we give to leaders that can't provide any robust answers to the concerns people have? Should they stay silent or communicate with a political on-the-fence approach? It's really hard for leaders sometimes when they're not able to be as transparent as they'd like. It's a really good point. Who wants to tackle? Go ahead, Asha.
I'll just say quickly, if you were in the situation where, you personally in your life, where you had someone you care about on one side of an issue and another person you care about on another side of an issue, and you were in a room with both of them, how would you speak to them in a human way? How would you talk with them? How would you potentially bring them together for a conversation? I'm in a unique situation personally where one side of my family is extremely left, one side of my family is extremely right. So I've lived this reality pretty much my entire existence. And I can tell you, if you start from that vantage point of, all of these people are worthy of care and concern, and everyone has their own reasons for thinking, feeling, behaving, acting the way that they do. And just start from there. Start from that point of we're all human. Gary said it earlier, right? We're all human. We all want to find a way to connect. Can you write for that executive from that vantage point of just saying, again, hey, I don't know it all. I don't have all the answers. I know that everyone has very strong viewpoints and we're very divided. But where we can all come together is in our shared mission and our vision for this organization and the things that we can do to help our customers, our communities, the things that we can do to help each other. There are unifying opportunities in our workplaces. And I think it's possible to get to a place where we can focus on them and almost create a safe haven, a safe space within our workplaces for people to feel that connection and that unity. Even when they don't agree on all of these, political, social, cultural issues.
Nice. That's such a great answer. Really, really great way to think about it. And it brings in that kind of be human element again. People don't want leaders to be robots. They want them to be authentic and genuine, don't they? Thank you, Deborah. That's such a good question. Amy said, Andrew, at the start of the call, you said the future of internal comms is uncertain. Do we see organisations devaluing internal comms on a broad basis, or is this about needing to find new ways to deliver content? What are the next gen channels and content? There's a few questions in there. I think the first thing is the future of internal comms is uncertain because the future of business is uncertain. So, we need to pivot and deliver business value, right? So whether that is AI changing the way processes in an organization happen, growing workforces, reducing workforces, globalization, dwindling or growing, whatever. I think, that's the uncertainty I'm talking about, and we need to be nimble and agile to that. But I guess the question for the group here is an interesting one, isn't it? The second part of the question is what is the next gen way of delivering content and the kind of channels we need to be looking at the future?
I can talk a little bit about this. So I think I've been on a journey, started off with your standard corporate events, and it's building on that. So for me, it's offering more opportunities and listening to your staff and their feedback, and ensuring you are taking that on board and changing as you need, whether it's written communications to staff or it's offering that two-way. That's what I have looked at as my internal comm strategy for the year. So I think listening to your staff and making sure that you are offering that to them in a hybrid way. So I think we all experience, some people are in the office, some people are working from home. So it's really adjusting to ensure you are reaching all of your audiences, those that are on the front line as well. So for me, I feel that that's the kind of journey we are going on.
Love that. Thank you. There's so many questions coming in. We're not going to get to them all, guys. So I'll say this now, and then we'll do some like quick fire ones to get through as many as we can. Connect with the people on your screen. Me, Ashley, Asha, and Gary. Ask the questions if there's something you know, that the beauty of our community and communications is we're so open, and that's why this group of people were selected for this conversation. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to answer more questions, so please do that. Let's do quick fire then. There's about 3 questions I just scrolled through here linked to surveys. One is about survey fatigue. One is about, you know, what do we think about the frequency? What's our view on pulse checks, you know, biannually, quarterly surveys? What are your views on this, guys? My quick take on it is, it depends on the org. You know, my org is quite small. We've got about 560 people, and we do pulse surveys to check on progress on action plans, and we do one big survey to create the action plans, and that seems to work quite well. But I know that wouldn't work in a larger org like I've been part of before. What are your views?
I think
Really quick.
Sorry, carry on, Ashley. You go.
I just want to share it's alliterative and hopefully a little bit fun with feedback. Yes, we have our surveys, but thinking beyond that, here's my approach to feedback channels. Make it fast, or make it fun, or make it fascinating. So you can reimagine and redesign your feedback channels and loops. They don't always have to be annual surveys or quarterly pulse surveys, right? Quick examples, make it fast. A 1-second, poll at the end of a communication. Did you like it? A smiley face, a sad face? Which did you like? Which fits you? Which one looks like your face after this, after reading this newsletter? That's fast. Make it fun. Gamification. Asha talked about this earlier. Can you gamify feedback? Can you, make it into something that feels like a crowdsourced initiative? Can you, have a little game, a little engagement app during town halls for people to engage with? And then make it fascinating. I've done small group sessions with groups of employees to completely deconstruct and recreate a town hall experience or a newsletter, and invite them into the process of taking apart a communications channel and putting it back together in a way that works for them. So to avoid the fatigue, fast, fun, fascinating, right? Reimagine your feedback loops. Gary, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, look, actually, you're spot on with very similar that I was going to say. I think, and for big organizations, I do like an annual survey and I do like a pulse check, because it allows your business to prioritize what they're going to push the dial on in the year with that people feedback there. But I was going to say exactly the same. Instead of giving a 10-question survey, it's these feedback pieces in the moment, in the flow of work or the activity you're doing. So you're saying polls, it's almost these small incremental views, these kind of micro feedback moments that you can take to just see how you're tracking.
Yeah. Love that. Let's quickly cover 2 more quickfire ones. How can I increase attendance at company-wide town halls?
Make it, on Ashley's point, make them fun. Yeah. Genuinely. So what are you going to get by coming along? So we recently did one, and we had stalls showcasing everything as an organization that we offer them as a staff employee. And that was the kind of, I'm going to come along, I'm not going to sit there, and I'm going to be able to engage with colleagues. So I think as fun as you can make things, that's the pull to get people involved and engaged.
Give them permission as well. Right, a business-wide town hall that's got loads of different areas and stuff like that. You've got to work on that permission piece. You get your leaders in the different areas saying, "Hey, we want you to attend this. We want you to focus on this for the half an hour, the hour, and stuff like that." Permission element, I think, is really crucial as well.
I once did a series of meetings, speaking of fun, where the CEO and C-suite were there dressed up as cooks serving breakfast to employees at the start of the town hall session. Boy, was that popular and well attended. People very much enjoyed that.
Serving up some eggs with your strategy. Nice. That's good. Okay, one more really, really quick one then, and then we'll wrap up. Linda, we ask so much of managers, how do we avoid overloading them? My quick take on that is they are paid more. And I know that's a really easy thing to say, but they are. Like, I'm a manager, and I believe in, I have a responsibility to contextualize change for my team and take them on the journey and be their voice up to senior management and everything else. But also, we need to empower them to speak up if things are becoming too much change, or that's not going to work the way you think it's going to work. So that's my quick take on it. Other views from around the table?
I think it's a really good point about what do we determine as leadership. A lot of you can be forgiven for thinking leadership is your big top, the big brass of the company, but actually we all know that your leader is the closest person to you a lot of the time, with your colleagues thinking that can be your line manager, that can be your business area manager, director, or senior manager, and things like that. And I think that's always having that in the back of your mind, and also empowering them, which also means updating them, the same as you would do a group of directors or partners and things like that, keeping them in the loop with Cascade. We're helping you to deliver these key pieces to your teams, and it's just that kind of support there, and really thinking about what leadership is.
I think communication and engagement needs to be a performance mandated part of the job for managers broadly, and I think we need to provide them not only with the incentives to do the work, to communicate with their teams properly and engage them, but also with the support, the training, the resources, the ongoing back and forth between corporate internal communications teams and boots on the ground managers, especially those directing the front line. We need those pathways really set in stone and really, really strong, so that managers are equipped and informed and empowered to be our frontline communicators. And be taking the reins with that. It's one of our most powerful communications channels we have at our disposal, but it also needs to be part of their performance goals and their compensation, or else, just human behavior, it won't be a priority.
Absolutely. Listen, thank you so much to everyone who's joined us for this conversation today. Thank you to Ashley, thank you to Gary, thank you to Asha as well. Sorry we didn't get to all your questions. I can see that there's a number of questions on the IC career. Join the next webinar next month, how to build a successful career in internal communications. There's the link for that in the chat. You'll find it on our website as well. Last thing to do one more time is just thank everyone here on the panel for joining us. Thank you all so much, guys. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And to everyone who stuck around after the hour, thank you, and have a great 2025. Thanks so much.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.